Welcome back inside TD Garden, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia, joined as always by the one and only Josue Pavon.
What's up, Trags?
This is not a night for frivolity for the Boston Celtics as they drop to 18-4 on the season. They get beat by the Detroit Pistons 118-108 here on the parquet on Monday night. This Garden Report is powered by CLNS Media and DraftKings.com. Go to DraftKings.com and use the promo code CLNS for one free play with your first deposit at DraftKings.com. Josue, really what I thought tonight was about the Detroit Pistons, Stan Van Gundy and company, really coming into town, reminding everybody that the Boston Celtics are a terrific team. They've had an unbelievable start to the season, but don't forget about them. They are now 13-6 on the year.
Yeah, Trags, I saw them do things on both ends of the floor that really just translated throughout the entire 48 minutes. There was a stretch where I feel like in the third quarter, the Celtics sort of showed life. They were starting to pick up their momentum. You saw a lot of three-pointers going in, that huge run that got them right back into the game. But it seemed like the same story that we saw in the first half. Whenever the Celtics made that big run, back came the Pistons with another run on their own. And then they made the key defensive stops in the fourth quarter. But we can't say enough about what Tobias Harris did in that third quarter specifically. I mean, without Tobias Harris going off the way he did in that third quarter, I just don't think the Pistons would have had enough to sort of keep the Celtics at bay, especially in that fourth quarter. And that's when Tobias Harris continued to do what he was doing. And then you saw other guys like Avery Bradley make huge stops. You saw Kyrie Irving look rattled because of Avery Bradley. And, I mean, for guys like you and me who've seen Avery Bradley throughout the years, we know that there are very few players in this league that can defend Kyrie Irving the way Avery Bradley did, and he did that again tonight.
All right, let's talk about Avery Bradley. It was his night to return to Boston after leaving in the summer, after being dealt to Detroit. And Avery Bradley not only shows class before the game and talking about Boston with great deal of reverence, but he showed class in the way he played the game, just like he did for 7 seasons here in Boston. He played his heart out. He started out fast, but he was a steady influence. He did not have to do all the scoring, but as you said, he really set the tone, getting up in the grill of Kyrie Irving, something the Celtics fans got used to seeing in the playoffs last year or in seasons past against Kyrie when Kyrie was with Cleveland.
Yeah, it took less than 5 minutes for him to force a turnover. It was a backcourt violation right on Kyrie Irving, and he was pretty much in his shorts throughout the entire game, really rattling him, making him feel uncomfortable. And, of course, also the front court sort of picked up on that tone that he set so early on in that first quarter. You saw a lot of guys in the front court play defense. I mean, Tobias Harris was doing his thing on the offensive end, but he was also making stops. He was making things very hard for Kyrie. You saw them throw a lot of different bodies at Kyrie Irving, especially when he was driving to the hoop. A lot of those layups that we've seen go in throughout this entire stretch, especially throughout that winning streak and throughout the 3-game road trip, just weren't falling the way we saw them falling and throughout those games where Kyrie Irving really went off. Of course, the 30-point game, the performance he did over the weekend. I mean, this was that game where he sort of dropped the ball a bit, and even though there were guys like Marcus Smart who picked up some of the momentum, I mean, when it came down to that fourth quarter, they made the key stops they needed to make to close out the Celtics.
All right, before we move on from Avery Bradley, a little bookkeeping. He was asked by NBC Sports Boston's Abby Shin in the morning shoot-around, do you see yourself staying in Detroit? Is that a place where you could see yourself settling? Because obviously he's in the final year of a contract. And he said, it's too early to tell. We'll have to see how the season plays out. We'll, play it by ear, not committing one way or another. And, he comes out, gets a standing ovation, which is what you would expect here in Boston during the introductions, the lineup introductions. And then the video tribute that is really a tradition now anytime a former Celtic comes back to Boston. It was really a special night for Avery Bradley. Let's move on to Kyrie Irving. We haven't said this much, but he did not have a good second half. He had a very good first half. He was 5 of 9 from the field, 14 points in the first half as the Celtics trailed just 60-57. But in the second half, it almost looked like he wore down from facing Avery Bradley. He was just 1 of 7 from the field, 4 points, and a big reason really why the Celtics committed 17 turnovers.
Yeah, you know, he was in himself in that fourth quarter, but also there were some crucial mistakes made by his teammates. You know, we saw that huge turnover by Marcus Smart, which I really was thinking he was going to call a timeout because there wasn't anyone remotely open when he turned that ball over at half court, got the fast break going for the Pistons, and the Pistons just sort of picked up the momentum from that.
That was a killer. That was an inbound pass, really. A pass he shouldn't have tried to Al Horford, and Andre Drummond stepped in front and went off to the races.
I mean, and the grimace on his face just told the entire story. He knew he shouldn't have let that pass go. It really got things going, and especially in the seesaw type of game that this was. Yep. I mean, we saw almost, about 20 times this game was tied, a lot of different lead changes. We did see rookie Jason Tatum sort of pick things up a bit. He hit a big corner three-pointer in the third quarter, got a couple of shots going in the fourth, got to the free throw line in the fourth quarter. But at the end of the day, though, those key stops and someone like Tobias Harris dropping 30 points, Avery Bradley making things happen on both ends of the floor, it was just a lot for the Celtics to take in those last, 3 or 4 minutes in the fourth quarter.
Look, the Pistons provide something to the Celtics not many NBA teams are going to be able to provide, and that is Andre Drummond. 26 points, 22 rebounds. He was a monster all game long, especially in the first half when he had 14 rebounds. He really dominated the paint, and not a lot of teams are going to be able to come in here and do that. But Brad Stevens, after the game, said a couple of things. He said, this is the kind of Pistons team we've come to expect over the last couple of years. Very well coached by Stan Van Gundy. Loves the way they run their offensive sets. Created problems last year here about the same point of the season and came away with a big win. Did the same thing tonight. The other thing Brad Stevens told us, our defense wasn't very good tonight.
Right. No, it wasn't. And also, much respect to Detroit, though. I mean, they have guys that are pretty much throughout that starting lineup. They're all capable of scoring 20-plus points. I mean, they're a team that sort of flew under the radar, before the regular season started. Mm-hmm. But now, I mean, they're making their point loud and clear. I mean, this is a team that can not only, put points up and score against you, but they can also defend, and that begins and ends with Avery Bradley. I mean, this is, again, not to keep talking about Avery Bradley here, but one point I want to...
It's the night to do that.
Well, it's one more point I want to get across, and that's the fact that not only is he so good at defending Kyrie Irving, but I feel like when you have someone like that in the backcourt, it always gives you a shot to make a deep run, whether we're talking playoffs or whether we're talking a top 4 team in the East. I mean, that's how valuable Avery Bradley is. You wonder why Avery Bradley doesn't want to commit so early and saying that, I can definitely see myself staying here long term. That's because he's going to earn himself a huge contract next summer, and that's because of what he did tonight and what he's going to continue to do throughout this regular season.
In the shoot-around on Monday morning, Stan Van Gundy called Avery Bradley's impact on the Pistons contagious, and we saw tonight why he is so contagious in a good way for the Detroit Pistons. They come out of here with a 118-108 win, beating the Boston Celtics. Only the 4th team to beat the Celtics this year in 22 games, and just the second home court loss for the Celtics this season. Of course, they lost their home opener to the Milwaukee Bucks. That's the last time they lost a game here in Boston. We'll have complete coverage on CLNS Media. The Celtics fall to 18-4. The Pistons improve to 13-6 on the season. That has been your Garden Report, brought to you by CLNS Media and DraftKings.com. Go to DraftKings.com, use promo code CLNS for one free play with your first deposit of at least $5. He is Josue Pavon. I'm Mike Petraglia. That is your Garden Report for CLNS Media.